Venice, the radiant queen of the Adriatic, glimmers today as a marvel of domes, palaces, and waterways, but beneath its grandeur lies the astonishing story of a thousand-year empire. This powerful maritime republic, famed for its ships and shrewd diplomacy, began in circumstances far humbler than its later glory suggests. During the height of Roman rule, the shallow lagoons along the northern Adriatic were inhabited only by scattered fishing families. But in the 5th century AD, as waves of so-called barbarian invaders, Huns, Goths, Lombards, devastated Italy, desperate refugees fled into the marshes. Protected by mudflats and shifting tides, they built homes on small islands and gradually forged a new community. In 726, these settlers elected a leader named Orso, considered the first doge, the head of state in what would eventually become a continuous line of 117 doges governing Venice for the next millennium. For nearly 2 centuries, much of Italy fell under the control of the resurgent Eastern Roman Empire, known to us as Byzantium. But when the Exarchate of Ravenna collapsed in 751, Venice alone resisted the Lombard advance, shielded by its watery world. Even Charlemagne's Franks, who answered the Pope's call to crush the Lombards, failed to conquer the city. Legend says his son Pepin died from illness brought on by the marshes while attempting to besiege it. With Byzantium's influence fading in Italy, Venice asserted increasing independence. The city's position between east and west allowed it to prosper from trade. Venetian merchants sold grain and wine to Constantinople, returning with silks, spices, and luxuries prized throughout Europe. Above all, the Venetian economy rested on salt, mined from carefully cultivated salt pans and regarded by Venetians as the true foundation of the state. In 828, 2 Venetian merchants smuggled what they claimed to be the body of Saint Mark out of Alexandria. The apostle's relics transformed Venice's prestige, and a great basilica, later rebuilt after a fire, rose in his honor. The Lion of Saint Mark, the city's new emblem, became the symbol of the Republic. As Venice's wealth increased, so did threats to its shipping. Pirates from the Balkans and North Africa preyed on trade routes. Venice responded by building a formidable navy, establishing fortified harbors along the Adriatic, and extending its reach to Dalmatia. The galley became the signature Venetian warship, sleek, fast, powered by oarsmen and lateen sails, and often carrying dozens of crossbowmen. In 1103, the Republic began construction of the Arsenal, a vast, state-controlled shipyard that grew into one of Europe's most advanced industrial complexes. Capable of producing hundreds of vessels annually, it became the backbone of Venice's dominance at sea. Venice also understood the value of political maneuvering. During the era of the Crusades, the Republic forged alliances and trade agreements with Crusader states. In 1202, the Fourth Crusade turned to Venice for transportation to the Holy Land, but unable to pay their debt, the Crusaders were persuaded by Doge Enrico Dandolo to capture several cities on Venice's behalf. The crusade then took a darker turn, the sack of Constantinople in 1204. Venice claimed enormous plunder, including the famous bronze horses now displayed atop St. Mark's Basilica. By partitioning the fallen Byzantine Empire, Venice gained key ports and islands in the Aegean, Crete, and Greece, collectively known as the Eyes of the Republic. This empire brought immense wealth but also ignited a fierce rivalry with Genoa, another Italian maritime giant. For more than a century, Venice and Genoa fought across the Mediterranean, their fleets clashing from the Black Sea to Sicily. During one of these conflicts, a Venetian nobleman named Marco Polo was captured by the Genoese and used his imprisonment to recount his travels to the Mongol court in China, a narrative that would fascinate Europe for generations. In 1379, Venice nearly fell when Genoese forces seized Chioggia, only a short distance from the capital. But the Republic staged an extraordinary reversal, trapping and defeating the Genoese fleet in a daring naval operation. The Peace of Turin in 1381 ended the war, leaving both republics exhausted, but only Venice possessed the political unity to rebuild. By the 15th century, Venice's government had evolved into a unique, highly structured system admired across Europe. Although nominally a republic, power remained firmly in the hands of hereditary noble families recorded in the Golden Book. Yet the system balanced councils, committees, and elected officials so tightly that Venetian governance became a model of stability, even if corruption and political intrigue still simmered beneath the surface. The Great Council, Senate, Quarantia, Signoria, and the secretive Council of Ten formed a layered political machine designed to prevent tyranny and preserve the state. Enormous prestige surrounded the office of the Doge, though by this time his role was largely ceremonial. Venice's diplomatic corps became legendary. Its ambassadors, skilled, multilingual, and meticulous, sent coded reports from every major court in Europe, offering Venice intelligence few states could match. But the Republic could not remain aloof from the violence engulfing Italy. As regional powers like Milan sought dominance, Venice hired mercenary captains, the condottieri, to defend its interests and expand its mainland territories. These professional soldiers, motivated by profit rather than loyalty, fought elaborate campaigns that often ended with little bloodshed, but enormous expense. Under Doge Francesco Foscari, Venice expanded aggressively into northern Italy, clashing repeatedly with Milan. A generation of mercenary warfare ravaged the region, culminating in the Peace of Lodi, which established Venice's mainland territories, its domini di terra firma, and ushered in 4 decades of relative calm. The peace ended abruptly in 1494 when King Charles VIII of France invaded Italy, sparking the Italian Wars, a sprawling, decades-long conflict that drew in France, Spain, the Holy Roman Empire, and every Italian state. At various moments Venice fought alongside, or against, nearly all of them. Pope Julius II formed the League of Cambrai in 1508, uniting Europe's mightiest powers to destroy Venice. For a moment, it seemed the Republic would collapse. A catastrophic defeat at Agnadello cost Venice nearly all its mainland possessions. But the Pope soon betrayed his own alliance and turned against France, allowing Venice to claw back much of what it had lost. Despite war, Venice flourished culturally. During the Renaissance, the city became home to legendary painters, Bellini, Carpaccio, Titian, Tintoretto, and architects like Palladio. Humanist scholars, printers, and philosophers transformed Venice into Europe's printing capital, producing more books than any other city. Here, Aldus Manutius pioneered the portable book, revolutionizing access to classical literature. But while Venice thrived in art, it faced a relentless danger from the east. The fall of Constantinople to the Ottoman Turks in 1453 marked the beginning of a centuries-long struggle. The Ottomans targeted Venice's island empire, capturing strongholds across Greece and the Aegean. Venetian fleets, once unrivaled, now faced formidable Ottoman admirals like Barbarossa, whose naval victories undermined Venice's supremacy. By 1570, the Ottomans turned toward Cyprus. Famagusta's defenders resisted for almost a year before surrendering, only for their commander, Marcantonio Bragadin, to be brutally executed. In response, Venice helped lead the Holy League to a monumental victory over the Ottomans at Lepanto in 1571, the largest galley battle ever fought. Despite the triumph, the strategic balance remained unchanged. Ottoman power in the region endured. In 1645, the Ottomans launched a massive assault on Crete, Venice's last major overseas possession. The siege of Candia stretched on for 21 years, one of the longest sieges in history, but despite heroic resistance, the city fell in 1669. Venice's Mediterranean empire was effectively gone. A brief resurgence came during the Great Turkish War, when Venice retook parts of Greece under the bold leadership of Francesco Morosini, who famously brought his cat into battle. But even these gains proved temporary. By 1718, the Ottomans had reclaimed most of the territory. Venice was no longer a maritime power. As the 18th century progressed, the Republic slid into stagnation. Though still admired for its beauty and culture, Venice became increasingly passive, avoiding major conflicts and failing to modernize its institutions or industries. Tourism, art, and pageantry flourished, but military and economic strength deteriorated. When Napoleon's armies swept into northern Italy in 1796, the once mighty republic lacked the means to resist. Under French pressure, the Great Council voted to dissolve itself, ending more than 1,000 years of independence. Napoleon looted vast amounts of Venetian art, including the horses of Saint Mark, sent to Paris, and extinguished the ancient institutions of the state. After Napoleon's defeat, Venice fell under Austrian rule. In 1848, inspired by European revolutions, Venetians briefly re-established the Republic of San Marco. But Austrian forces eventually recaptured the city after a long siege. Finally, in 1866, Venice joined the newly unified Kingdom of Italy, ending centuries of foreign domination. Though its empire has vanished, Venice remains one of the world's most treasured cities. Artists, poets, and travelers have long been captivated by its ethereal light and labyrinthine canals, from Byron and Hemingway to Monet and Turner. Today, however, Venice faces grave challenges: rising sea levels, increasingly severe flooding, and the pressures of mass tourism. The battle for its survival continues, echoing the many struggles that shaped its extraordinary past. For 1,000 years, Venice stood as a fortress of commerce, diplomacy, and maritime might. Its story, one of resilience, brilliance, and reinvention, endures as one of history's most remarkable epics.